Hello and welcome back. Today I'm going to be showcasing a build for the first time on this channel, so if you're interested and want to see more of this kind of stuff, feel free to just leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. But for now, how's about we actually get into this build? So first things first, we're going to be on the Prismatic Warlock subclass, and the super of choice that we're going to be using is the Stasis Winter's Wrath, as we'll be needing a Stasis super to be able to combine our exotic armour with our exotic weapon of choice. Moving on to the class ability, I've opted for the Phoenix Dive, but the Empowering and Healing Rift are just as good. At this point it would be a matter of preference as to which one you'd like to choose, so yeah, pick whichever one you like. For the jump ability, again, it's all a matter of preference. I prefer burst, but pick whatever you're comfortable with. For melee, I've gone for the Arcane Needle. I prefer the Arcane Needle over the Incinerator Snap just because of its range and its ability to provide unraveling on the enemy, but Incinerator Snap is also a very good and viable option, as it does proc ignitions, which does in fact combo with one of the fragments we've chosen, so that is a very viable option. As for the grenade, I think the Storm Grenade is the best option, as with the fragment below we can proc Jolt with it. However, if survivability is a bit of an issue for you, then Healing Grenade can also be a good option, as is the Vortex Grenade, due to a different fragment that allows both the Vortex and the Prismatic Grenade to weaken on impact, which is quite strong really. Next up we have our aspects. The most important, of course, is Feed the Void. This being our main source of survivability, because on ability kills we are granted Devour, which even in the Edge of Fate, after its nerf, is still incredibly strong and remains the best option for this particular Prismatic Warlock build. And our second aspect, of course, is going to be the Bleak Watcher. This allowing you to consume a grenade and instead throw out a stasis turret, which is a fantastic form of crowd control on top of the Argus Scepter, but it also has some compatibility with some of the perks within our armour, which I will get to later. However, it is certainly worth mentioning that Devour does grant grenade energy, which combines very, very nicely with the Bleak Watcher aspect. Okay, moving on to the fragment slots. We have 4 at our disposal, with the main ones being the Facet of Ruin, as well as the Facet of Command. Okay, starting with the Facet of Command. Freezing or suppressing a target reloads your equipped weapons. This is the most important part of this fragment, as it combines quite nicely with the Bleak Watchers, allowing you to reload your weapons, perhaps during a damage phase, but also it combines with the Prismatic Grenade, and most importantly, the Argus Scepter's Hyper Super Beam that you can use freezes after a short duration of hitting someone, so as you're blasting away this laser beam at someone, the enemy will be freezing over and over and over again, which in turn reloads the Argus Scepter as well as even your other weapons too, so you end up in this cycle where the Argus Scepter is constantly reloading itself as it's firing, which is important because without the Facet of Command, the Argus Scepter will eventually run out of ammo before your super is drained, which will end up cutting your damage pretty significantly. So it's actually ideal to be able to keep reloading, keep funneling reserve ammo back into the Argus Scepter, and allowing the super beam to continue as long as humanly possible, which the Facet of Command will in fact do that. As for the Facet of Ruin, This one is significant because not only does it give us a small bump to our weapon stat, which is always nice, it allows us to significantly improve the damage of our shatters, as well as also any ignitions that you're able to get off, whether that be through a incandescent weapon, or perhaps if you chose the incinerator snap, for example, this would also combine nicely with that. And next up we have the Facet of Dominance, which is a pretty powerful fragment for this build, as it does allow our void grenades to weaken, such as when you throw the prismatic grenade, and if you chose vortex of course. Or in my case, if you chose the lightning grenade, it will allow you to jolt, which combined with the unraveling needles, you'll gain a pretty nice boost to your damage with the repeating jolt feedback mixed with the unraveling. Yeah, it's just a nice little additional bit of damage for you. And next up we have the Facet of Protection. This one I assume needs no introduction. It is possibly the most useful of all of the prismatic fragments, providing users with a significant damage reduction boost, which goes even further when you're in Transcendence, so yeah, always good to take that one. However, there is of course a bit of flexibility if you'd like, such as if you want to take the Facet of Balance, for example. This could be useful if you're looking to get your grenades back even faster. You know, perhaps Devour isn't quite cutting it, or your stats are a bit low. That one's always handy. Next we have the Facet of Devotion, which will allow you to generate a decent amount of light energy whenever you shatter or unravel a target. So don't feel you have to take the exact same fragments or abilities that I've taken. There is a decent amount of flexibility here, so customize to your own strengths and weaknesses. And for those of you that are interested and are currently playing within the first season, I guess, of the Edge of Fate, here are the artifacts that I think complement this build the most, though of course take whatever suits you the best. Anyway, without further ado, let us get into the weapons and armour for this build. So, to begin with, we have the Chill Inhibitor or Cold Comfort. Both are great options for this, though you can of course take whatever stasis heavy weapon that you have on hand. I just prefer these two as they both come with bait and switch, which is of course one of the best DPS perk options for weapons. And for my energy weapon, I have gone for a Callus mini tool, which is one of my favourite SMGs in the game. This one has incandescent and unrelenting, which I think is a pretty decent role for this build, because sometimes if healing does become an issue, you can always rely back on unrelenting. And not to mention, but when incandescent spreads Scorch and that Scorch does kill something like a trash mob, multiple Scorch kills will also proc unrelenting for you, which is quite nice. It can happen at the best of times for you. And that's not including the 2XS origin perk that it has, which again, when you've got a full super, you're able to, kills will start to regenerate some of the energy from your other abilities that haven't got any. So if you're just trying to get that little bit extra grenade energy or melee energy, it can be quite useful. And last thing to note about the mini tool, I think the most important weapon mod to have on this thing is the abundant ammo weapon mod, which will slightly increase the ammo generation of this weapon, which is always going to come in handy because your main tool is the Argus Scepter, so you want to be funneling as much ammunition into that thing as possible. But of course, I should state that the Callus mini tool is just my choice for this slot. Of course, you can use basically whatever you want in here. You can use double special if you really want, but I wouldn't recommend it. You can use basically any primary weapon here that uses primary ammo, so feel free to take whatever you're comfortable with, really. And last up for the weapons is the man of the hour himself, the Aga's Scepter. You can get this weapon, I believe, from the exotic kiosk in the tower, and what a weapon it is. I would highly recommend getting your hands on this thing if you don't already have it yet. This thing is a machine. It is so powerful. Being able to just freeze entire groups of ads and be able to beam down big chunky yellow bars with its super blast, it is so good. And most importantly, when you do get a kill and shatter them, the Aga's Scepter will actually be able to, on its own, proc devour from these shattered kills, which is quite powerful really, as it means you don't have to rely on other abilities and ability cooldowns. So you will have uptime of devour almost indefinitely, assuming you're able to actually get kills. And I cannot stress enough just how potent the super mega beam is. Sure, it drains your super, but the damage output in return is insane. It is ridiculous damage, especially if you have Transcendence going at the same time. If you've got Stasis Surge mods going as well, you'll be putting out a surprising amount of damage for a special weapon, that's for sure. Anyway, let us move on to the armour. You'll notice that I have opted for a full set of the last discipline armour set, which I believe you get from Crucible, but I'm not entirely sure. I think that's where you get it from. And I chose this set because of the 4-piece Power Loader armour perk, which allows you to gain special ammo progress whenever you pick up an Orb of Power, which, when you're using primarily a special weapon, that is an almost invaluable perk to have. And as for the stat distributions, I think the best stats for this build will be the weapon stat, which will in turn boost the Aga's Scepter's damage, along with any heavy weapon damage that you're trying to pump out. It's just the overall best stat in my opinion. Followed shortly by the grenade stat, which of course is going to help us gain our grenade back faster, which is important if you're trying to jolt or trying to freeze with stasis turrets. And also the super stat is another very important one. I'm not entirely sure if Bungie have fixed the issue where the super stat and other stats were not providing the benefits that they should be, but assuming that gets fixed, the super stat will actually be able to increase the amount of super energy gained from all sources, which I believe, I'm not entirely sure, I'll have to test this, but I believe that includes the super energy gained from the Mantle of Battle Harmony, which we'll get to a bit later on. And with that being said, let's actually jump into the armour individual pieces themselves and look at the mods that we've got. So for the helmet, I have chosen to go for a super font, which will help build our super back and also increase the amount of super energy gained across the board. Then we have the Harmonic Siphon, which at the low cost of 1 energy allows us to create orbs of power from our stasis weapons, which we will be creating a lot of, since the Aga's Scepter will be our main weapon of choice. And then of course we have a special ammo finder, which is critical for being able to fuel the Aga's Scepter in the long run. Next up we have the gloves. I've opted for a solar loader mod, which is specifically for the Callus mini tool. However, this can be swapped out with essentially anything here. If you want to reload quicker, sure, go for it. If you want to generate more orbs from your melee, from your grenades, that's also perfectly fine to go in this mod slot. And next to that we have a momentum transfer armor mod, which, along with the bolstering detonation mod to the left, will allow us to generate class ability and melee energy from the little dinks of damage that our stasis turrets will dish out. And whilst the damage isn't a lot, mind you, the small little incremental bursts of damage from the stasis turret will actually generate a pretty sizable amount of energy for your abilities, as the turrets will last longer than the internal cooldown of these mods, meaning they can be procced multiple times. And next up we have the exotic chest armor, the Mantle of Battle Harmony, one of my favourites. This thing comes with absorption cells, which means that final blows with weapons matching your equipped super damage type will grant you super energy. And when your super energy is full, you instead will gain a bonus to the weapon damage of that type, which, if you're using a stasis super, means that you'll be getting the equivalent of 4 stasis surge mods activated at the same time, which is approximately a 25% damage boost, I believe, which is nothing to scoff at, especially when you're pumping out damage with a stasis heavy weapon that has bait and switch. You'll be piling on the damage buffs and doing insane numbers. And of course, it goes without saying, but this chest piece is phenomenal at being able to regenerate super energy as long as you're getting kills with a weapon that matches your super. So if you are using Aga's Scepter, every single kill that you get with the trace rifle, you'll be pumping energy back into your super to be able to then fire the super mega beam of death pretty much whenever you want. It comes back rapidly, and it helps that you can actually cancel the beam early as well, meaning you can start to regain some of that lost super energy. As for the mods themselves, the only real mod that I think is essential is the stasis ammo generation mod, because you'll be using stasis weapons most of the time. So it's just another way to generate ammo, because the Aga's Scepter is very hungry for special ammo. It is a hungry beast. As for the rest of the chest armor mods, just tailor them towards the activity at hand, really. Moving on to our boots, we have the Stasis Scavenger mod. Again, a fantastic mod for regenerating a lot of that lost ammunition. This one as well is super important because it essentially doubles the amount of ammunition that you would gain from a special ammo brick. I'm not sure if it's actually double, but it's not far off. And I know for a fact that if you are using a stasis rocket launcher, you will get 2 rockets per heavy brick instead of 1, which is pretty good. And lastly, we have 2 stasis weapon surges, which will benefit us nicely for when we don't have the damage boost from Battle Harmony, which will be essentially any time we don't have a full super. And lastly, moving on to the class item slot. This one's pretty straightforward for me. I have 3 time dilation mods to get the full 20 seconds of armor charge, which will help maintain the armor surges, it will help maintain the font of wisdom, stuff like that. However, if you do think it is overkill, then feel free to swap out some of the dilations for example, a Reaper mod, if orbs are more of the concern. So with that all said and done, I hope you enjoyed watching this video. I'm going to end the commentary here and let some background gameplay showcase this build in action. Again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.